PAX is really cool. I think I've mentioned this to you a little bit earlier, but I've been to a bunch of E3s before, and a long time ago, E3 used to be more open to the public. So PAX is more how E3 used to be. So it's actually really kind of cool that a lot of people can come here and show up, not just industry guys. So I think the panel went really well. We got to talk about a lot of cool things and talk a lot about community stuff. I mean, to be honest with you, the main thing that I came away from, it was way too short. We had a line that was super long of people who wanted to ask questions. I think we only got like a fourth of the questions there, and there was a lot more things that I really wanted to cover, and we just didn't get a chance. I mean, the panel was an hour long, but I have the feeling that the panel could have went 3 hours, 4 hours long, and we could have, you know, there was just a lot of stuff I wish I could have talked about there that we didn't get a chance. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, right now, we need to establish, and this is not even just for fighting game community, to be honest with you. This is for video gaming in general. I feel like the media for video games is really, really in a bad state, because the primary sites for news are stuff like Kotaku and Joystick. And while, I mean, I'm not hating on those sites or anything like that, they are very much traffic-based. That's how they get their revenues. They get all sorts of writers. And so it's more beneficial to those sites to write about sensationalistic kind of topics and such, you know, stuff that will drive the traffic in. We need to get better, stronger media in video gaming in general so that we can be properly represented. I mean, the video game community is probably one of the most poorly represented mainstream communities out there, right? You go and talk to film geeks or whatever like that, they don't get the bad reputation that we get, that video game players get. And so, you know, from fighting games to esports to developers to all sorts of things. I mean, even when you have shows like on Spike TV where they do awards, they always get like these famous B-list actors and actresses. You don't actually talk to the developers or all these other things. So I just feel like media in general for video games really needs to focus more on the real stories behind video games. I mean, all niche hobbies have good stuff. There's Golf Digest, Guitar Weekly, or whatever, all these kind of things. And yet, for some reason, video games don't have that kind of thing. And largely, it's also because it's driven by game companies give media early copies. And so game companies have a lot of powers. You post a bad review of our game, we stop giving you early copies. Something has to give or take to change the way video game media goes so that everybody, including the fighting game community, can be better, more accurately represented of who we actually are. Well, the hardest thing right now about the fighting game community is that, you know, everyone can feel it. We're like, something is about to happen, it feels like. It feels like we're getting somewhere. The problem is, a lot of people are seeing it through dollar signs. And so what happens is everyone's trying to get in on the ground floor so that if and when it blows up, they'll be there to make all the money. And that's kind of hard because, you know, in order for a scene like the fighting game community to succeed and to grow, it's really going to take a lot more than it has to take a lot of love and a lot of passion and a lot of care. And you know, I've talked about this with other people in the community. In order for it to succeed, there really are going to need to be martyrs. There has to be people who are willing to dedicate a lot of this and get very little out of it, because when you look at all the industries in the past, like basketball, baseball, and all that stuff, when they all started, nobody was making money. In fact, there was an article maybe like maybe 5 years ago or something, the very first superstar in the NBA, he had no money. George Mikan, he was broke when he was older, when he was retiring. He was basically poor for most of his life. And that's just the way it has to start. You know, everyone wants to jumpstart so fast and get to the point where we're this giant thing. And it's easy to look that way, especially with the way media works these days with YouTube and streaming and stuff. It's easy to make it look large and big. But the problem is people don't realize that a lot of money is disappearing, not appearing. And so in order for this to work, I feel like we need to take a more steady, more solid, more careful approach to build it a proper foundation so that we can get there slower and slowly, because that to me is the way that it's going to succeed, is if we can build a proper foundation for it. I mean, right now, fighting games, probably the biggest weakness of fighting games is that they're hard to play. They're very hard to pick up and play because those of us who've been playing fighting games for like 20 years or whatever like that, you know, fireball motions or whatever. But you get to anyone off the, you know, who just plays the games casually and say, do a quarter circle forward plus punch motion. And it's like, what the heck are you talking about, right? So fighting games definitely need to have a lot of training and a lot of help getting people in there. But at the same time, the games need to get to a point where they can be played at a very high level. It's really interesting because you have a game like Marvel, for example, kind of easy to get into, a lot of scrubby things like X Factor and whatnot and easy combos, but at the highest level, it's still a pretty strong game. I mean, a lot of people still complain about it, but you know, you have consistent winners, right? Chris G Champ, PR Rog, they're always placing high. If the game was as random as everyone says, then that wouldn't be happening. But games definitely need to, it's so hard, it's really hard, but they definitely need to find a better way to pull people in and then keep them in there. It's a very difficult task. I don't envy them, the people who are ranking the games, but you know, obviously the reason why we're asking this question is no one has really quite figured it out yet. So once someone does, expect to see everybody kind of to follow suit. I have so much trouble sleeping on planes. I hate red eyes, but that's the thing, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We do what we can to get to events, to make it to these events, because like I said, we do it for the love, man. You got to make sacrifices to make things work. I mean, I guess the main thing that I would like to say is just that fighting games are fun. They're a amazing, unique kind of game that you just do not see like anywhere. It's a mix between execution, dexterity, intelligence, psychology, and artistry that you just don't see in a lot of other video games. I mean, it really is, in my opinion, one of the most, like, it is like the paragon, the epitome of like competitive gaming. And it is hard to get into, but, and you know, the scene that we have gets a lot of negative press and such, but, and, you know, I say this a lot, the fighting game community is actually a wonderful community. Most of my friends, in fact, almost all of my friends are from the fighting game community because I've been here for 20 years. I've made great friends. I've met talented people. I've met amazing, just countless amazing people in this community. I say this all the time, I would not trade anything that I've done in the last 20 years, you know, if I had to go back and do it again. I would do it exactly how it went right now because I love this community. It's the only reason why I'm still in it, right? I could easily walk away from this community and live a completely different life, but I don't want to because that's how much I enjoy it here. So definitely, you know, if you have a chance to go to an event or if you have the chance to check out a fighting game community, something, please do, because it really is wonderful. And when you go to an actual event, you'll see a kind of energy and a kind of excitement and hype that you have never seen in your life. It is a magical environment.